Young Buzz. Welcome back to the channel where we talk all things K-entertainment, from the hottest dramas to the biggest movie releases. And today, oh boy, do we have a fantasy-packed topic that's stirring up quite the storm in theaters and online. You already know what I'm talking about, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Now, if you're a web novel reader, this title probably already rings a bell. It's one of those massive IPs with a cult following. I mean, the original novel has over 200 million global views. That's insane. So when the film version finally dropped, expectations were sky high. Like, no pressure, right? Well, the movie just hit theaters on the 23rd, and during its first weekend, from the 25th to the 27th, it pulled in 427,362 viewers. That's not just good. That's blockbuster level for a domestic fantasy action flick. And as of now, the cumulative number is sitting at 627,890 viewers. For a movie based on a web novel, that's pretty wild. But you know what's even more impressive? It's been #1 at the Korean box office for 5 straight days. That's right, 5 days of dominance. It beat out some major Hollywood contenders like F1 the Movie and Fantastic Four Legacy. And we'll talk about those later, but let's stay in Seoul for now. So let's break down what makes Omniscient Reader such a big deal. First off, the cast. We've got Hyo-seop as Kim Dokja, the only person who read the original story before it came to life. And then there's Lee Min-ho, yes, the Lee Min-ho, alongside Chae Soo-bin, Shin Sung-ho, Nana, and Jisoo. Talk about a star-studded ensemble. And the concept? Honestly, it's super meta and really fun. Imagine if the world of a novel you were reading suddenly became real, and you were the only one who knew what was coming. That's basically Kim Dokja's situation. Now he's got to navigate this apocalyptic, dungeon-infested Seoul and fight monsters while trying to survive. Sounds epic, right? And to be fair, a lot of people love the movie for exactly that reason. The visuals especially are getting major praise. Like, the VFX team went hard. The creature battle scenes? Massive. Intense. Think crumbling buildings, blazing skies, and those shadowy dungeon beasts that look like they crawled straight out of a nightmare. If you're into big screen spectacles, this one's definitely got that blockbuster punch. And honestly, I think Hyo-seop is growing so much as an actor. He pulled off that complex balance of being vulnerable and heroic. And Lee Min-ho, even though I usually associate him with K-drama royalty roles, he really brought that rugged action vibe this time. Honestly, I didn't know I needed him in a fantasy action role until now. And here's where things get interesting. The reviews are mixed. Some fans are loving the visuals, the action, the scale, but others are saying it's kind of all flash, not enough heart. Basically, the emotional storytelling didn't hit as hard as it could have. And I kind of get it. When you're adapting such a beloved and detailed web novel, there's so much ground to cover. Condensing that into a 2-hour movie without losing the essence of the characters? That's a tall order. Some fans of the original novel felt like the movie didn't go deep enough into Dokja's emotional journey or his complex relationships with the other characters. And I think that's a valid point. Like, imagine waiting years for your favorite story to get a live-action adaptation, only for it to end up feeling like a trailer for the full version you already read. That can be frustrating, right? So, here's a question for all of you. Do you think movies like this should always be turned into full drama series instead of films? I mean, with stories this complex, wouldn't a 12-episode Netflix series have given more room to breathe? Let me know what you think, because I feel like we're seeing this more and more. Amazing web novels and webtoons are getting these beautiful, expensive-looking movies, but sometimes the emotional depth gets sacrificed for runtime. Now, I'm not saying the movie's bad, it's still doing really well at the box office, but it does spark this bigger discussion about how we adapt these huge IPs for the screen. Is it better to go big and cinematic, or take the slow burn approach through a series? All right, before we move on, let me know in the comments if you've seen Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint yet. Did it live up to your expectations? Were you one of the novel readers who felt let down? Or did you go in blind and enjoy it for what it was? And be honest, how would you rate Hyo-seop and Lee Min-ho's performances? Okay, Now that we've dissected the monster battles and reader-fueled chaos of Seoul, let's take a look at how the rest of the box office is shaking out this weekend, because it's not just Korean films that are making noise. All right, let's keep unpacking this whole omniscient reader's viewpoint phenomenon, because honestly, there's so much to talk about beyond just the box office numbers and flashy visuals. One thing I want to dig into is the challenge of adapting web novels, especially something as intricate as this one. If you've read the original novel, you know it's layered with psychological twists, detailed world building, and deep character development. It's not just a battle fest. It's a story about human survival, trust, and facing inner demons as much as literal ones. So, when the movie focuses heavily on visual effects and epic battles, some of that complexity can get lost. And that's what a lot of fans are saying. They feel the emotional depth and character arcs were sacrificed for spectacle. But here's my take. I actually think the movie is trying to find a balance between satisfying the hardcore fans and attracting new audiences who might not be familiar with the novel. And sometimes that means dialing down the complicated stuff to make the story more accessible. That said, I do wish they had found a way to dive deeper into the characters' emotional journeys. Kim Dok-ja's internal struggles, his sense of isolation as the only person who knows the story, and his evolving relationships with others. It's such a rich canvas. And while Hyo-seop gave a solid performance, I think the script didn't fully explore these layers. Have you noticed how in some scenes the emotion feels a bit rushed or underdeveloped? Like, you get the action beats perfectly, but the quiet moments where characters should connect or reflect get shorter shrift. Also, the pacing at times felt uneven. One moment you're watching a tense fight against a terrifying monster, and the next, you get a quick emotional beat that feels like it was squeezed in just to remind you the characters have feelings. It's almost like the movie was torn between being an adrenaline rush and a heartfelt drama. That's why I'm curious. How did you feel about the pacing? Did it keep you on the edge of your seat, or did you find it hard to stay invested in the characters? Another point that's been on my mind is how the movie translates the dungeon world from page to screen. The VFX team deserves major props here. The way Seoul is transformed into this dangerous, crumbling battleground filled with creatures was visually stunning. It's a feast for the eyes and really captures the novel's intense atmosphere. But sometimes, the emphasis on spectacle overshadows the story. It makes me wonder if the filmmakers felt the need to impress with big set pieces instead of letting the story breathe. And that brings up a bigger question about Korean cinema lately, especially when it comes to adapting popular IPs. Are movies focusing too much on visual wow factor at the expense of storytelling? Or is this just the nature of adapting a novel with a huge fan base and high expectations? Personally, I think Omniscient Reader still managed to deliver an entertaining experience, especially if you enjoy fantasy action and monster battles. But I can understand why some fans of the novel might feel disappointed. One more thing I want to mention is the cast chemistry. Lee Min-ho and An Hyo-seop have very different acting styles, and seeing them share screen time was interesting. Lee Min-ho brought his signature charisma and grit, which felt fresh in an action-heavy role. Meanwhile, An Hyo-seop's performance was more subtle and introspective, matching his character's reserved and analytical nature. But did you feel like their chemistry really clicked? Or did it feel like they were on different pages? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because it's such a critical part of the movie's emotional core. And we can't forget about the supporting cast, like Chae Soo-bin, Nana, and Shin Sung-ho. They all contributed to the dynamic, but again, some of their characters could have used more screen time to develop. Okay, before I wrap up this part, here's something fun. If you could choose one character from Omniscient Reader's viewpoint to get a spin-off or deeper focus in a sequel or series, who would it be? For me, I'm curious about Jisoo's character. She had this mysterious vibe that I think could be explored much more. So overall, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint as a movie is a solid entry in the fantasy action genre with big ambitions. It's thrilling to watch and visually impressive, but it leaves me wishing for more emotional depth and better narrative pacing. What about you? Are you team visual spectacle or team emotional storytelling? Or do you think it's possible to have both in one film? Let's get a discussion going in the comments, because I feel like this movie is the perfect example of the challenges facing adaptations today. Alright, that's all for now on Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. When you've seen the movie, hit me up with your review, and let's nerd out together.